You're listening to the Zhen Podcast, a show focused on mental, physical, and relationship health. Each episode features conversations with different guests who share real-life experiences that could be from their own journeys to the work they've done with their clients. We explore what actually helps people move forward, whether that comes from science, spirituality, or day-to-day simple habits that could make meaningful differences. The goal of the podcast is to provide clarity and tools you can apply in your own life. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Today we have Michelle Shahbazyan joining us to talk about the latest episodes of Love is Blind. A lot has happened, and I was watching it and I was actually thinking this group of people are actually pretty mature. I feel like everyone did handle situation with more of a calm demeanor, but that does not shield us from a lot of drama. In particularly, I think Chris has brought so many interesting interactions to our viewing experience. So he is definitely a character, and I cannot wait to hear, Michelle, your perspective on him. And I will definitely chime in, if whether I agree or disagree with some of your comments. So I'm going to turn the table to you and see what's your thought on Chris and also the relationship between Chris and Jessica.
And Brie.
And Brie. Yes, we cannot forget my favorite person.
Yes. So I actually think that Chris has so many great qualities because he's so honest, right? I'm going to talk about the whole picture of him. But I want to start with, first and foremost, admiring the fact that he wasn't scared to speak his mind and say, you know what? Maybe this was something I missed. Maybe this was something that is really important to me that I didn't realize until after we got out of the pods, when we started having this flood of emotions and feelings and seeing each other in person. And you know what? Maybe I do want a really fit girl. Okay, so that stings to a person who isn't fit or who isn't ready and open to hear that, or is so invested that they're like, there's no turning back. This is it. She said it at one point too. She's like, I was 100% in. I was ready to get married. And you could tell by her demeanor, like she was so happy. She didn't think there was anything wrong. And that happens all the time in relationships. One person will be 100% on board and the other person's like, yeah, no, maybe I could take it or leave it. So the fact that he was open about it is huge. I think there's a part of him that they called him like narcissistic at one point, which I think was a little bit of a stretch, but there's a part of him that is very confident and maybe a little bit socially not PC. But I think that's the same part of him that also feels comfortable to just talk to Jess the way he did. I think there was a better way he could have handled himself maybe at that bar towards the end where like all the people were around him. And I feel like he was on the defense where he had to, put his perception out into that group so that everybody knew where he was and how he felt. And like, he's like, I'm not a bad guy. Like, I wasn't trying to be mean. I was just trying to, even when I watched that moment with him and Jess, when I was watching it, I was like, oh, that's really good that he's like so open and willing to say that. He took his day or two to, he distanced himself, which was what I was talking about before, which is what guys will do once they kind of start, falling back a little from the relationship. So he did that and she picked up on it and she was like, why aren't you telling me you love me? And that need for reassurance is very normal in any relationship, but it's obviously more reassuring when somebody says, yeah, I love you too and I miss you. Hey, I'm just having a super busy day. But when you don't get that, that's kind of a pretty clear indication of like that person's not really that into you, and it may just be the beginning signs of it, and that's okay. But know that if you're too invested, whether you're dating, you're engaged, even when you're married, if you are too overly invested and you miss those signs, the only person that's going to get hurt is you, because the person who's halfway out the door, they're not that emotionally invested. They're not going to feel so riled up. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts.
Okay. Now that you frame things in a certain way, I can see why he has maybe 3 valid points. However, my thing with him is, number one, you said he took 2 days to distance himself. And then so he came back with more quote unquote clear headed and tell Jesse that he wants a more fit girl. I know that there's a lot of editings we didn't see, but before that, he seemed so in love. And that gave Jessica this, I guess, almost like a wrong idea where they're at in their relationship. So maybe this is not just towards Chris, but in general in a relationship. Is 2 days enough for you to give a notice to somebody who is so invested and let them know that you're no longer as interested as before? In other words, what are some other signs that we can observe to protect ourselves so no one is being blindsided?
I think as you get more experienced and you get older in life and you get more and more grounded as a person, and you know that you are whole as is no matter what, and there's no breakup that will break you, and there's no person who could walk away that's going to take something so important from your essence that you're gonna be so distraught that you can't move forward. Once you get into that mindset, it's almost like you get disillusioned. You just kind of like you become like a grown up and you become very grounded in reality. Once you're in that place, there's nothing that can hurt you. You could be so in love and know that you know what, it's life. People come, people go, people change their mind, people's feelings change, people get to know you better. And they might not like parts of you. They might not be interested. They might not be attracted to you. And like most people don't have control over that. You can't just like, sometimes you can if you are very intentional and you're like, this is my spouse and we have children together and I am not getting divorced. That's ridiculous. Like we have so much good. You can turn that on and become more attracted, but know that if it's not that natural automatic rapture and the butterflies and all of that, that will come and go. It will keep coming and going for the same reasons it wasn't there in the first place, because you keep seeing those same things. Unless that person somehow transforms to become their absolute best self that you knew they were. But that goes on the other tangent of marrying a project or a potential or whatever. But the things that you can do to protect yourself are to always just be strong, to always know that no matter what stage of a relationship you're at, that people can walk, that that's their right, and that you've got to always be on your toes. And the interesting thing was that her response wasn't, you know what, I'm going to take up Pilates. I love you so much that I'm going to do whatever it takes. She was willing to take that relationship at face value, the way she was, the way he was. She was good with it. But any relationship that you get into, it's always going to keep evolving. Your partner will always have things that they want from you and you from them constantly. Don't think that when they got married, she was going to be just as happy as she was, when they first met to 2, 3, 5, 10 years in. She's going to want things. She's going to need things. She's going to ask him for things. Don't hang out with your friends late at night. Tell me where you're going. And then when he doesn't do it, she's going to be like, why aren't you doing it? I want a man who's reliable, who tells me where he is, who talks about these things all the time. So his ask is essentially like, I am super into you, but like, you think about it you're a person, you're going to age over time. For him, that was a no-go. He wants a girl who's like into kickboxing and this and that. And she wasn't in love enough to say, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that. Thank you for telling me. Let's go together. I'm going to find my own gym and I'm going to start my routine and you are my person. And if that's what's going to make you leave, then I'm going to make sure you don't leave. That's like an unbreakable love, is when you're that willing to grow with somebody. I don't think it was that big of an ask. She's beautiful. Anybody would look better if they work out a little bit, but she was already perfect as is, I think.
I think that's a pretty hot take because I do think that the way how the show edited, we are trying to pick Chris as the villain in this sense. I would counter argue and say, I think the way how he handled it was not the most considerate and gentle way towards another person. I do hear there's a lot of like, this is what I want. I didn't hear a lot of like, if you were to work out more, how would that affect your life? Meaning Jessica's life. She is a doctor, right? She's probably exhausted. To be fair, and I'm not a doctor, I never dated a doctor, but just from, say, like a TV show, you see them like running around, working really hard. there is a level of exhaustion after work, especially after night shift. I think that if we were to add certain physical activity like a workout class on top of it, I don't really know if that's sustainable for her lifestyle as well as her physical tolerance when it comes down to the workload. So for me, I wish that Chris just, rather than like, this is what I want, like to kind of talk about how could it work for the both of them. I don't think he didn't. I mean, maybe he did. We didn't see, but it's not like he works out like a maniac. Like he just always trying to be more fit, you know. And I think there is a selfish part toward like he was a little selfish, which is fine. But I didn't like the way how I almost felt like he had targeted, he attacked Jessie for this one thing that she didn't do and didn't kind of like understand we all have shortcomings and we all have things that right now it's just not a priority.
I think still she could have been, if she was, and we're talking about this like objective outsiders, right? We're not in that moment and the feelings, and you don't want to hurt somebody. And he probably thought about how to tell her for like a couple of days. He probably was like, but how do I say it? But what do I say? And then you say it, and then you're like, oh, I said it the wrong way. That's so normal. That happens all the time. And then if you have a strong enough relationship, which these guys have known each other for like a few weeks at that point, right? But if you have like months or years under your belt and something like this comes up, then you go in and you're like, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said it like that. Maybe I should have said it like this. Like my point was, can you adjust your lifestyle? Like this is really important for me. Like I want you to be healthy long term. And I know I haven't, I don't think I've dated a doctor, but I know so many doctors, lawyers, people who are in these ultra, ultra high demanding jobs. And the people who are at the top are the ones who don't sacrifice working out. They will go at 5 in the morning. They're up at 4:30 every single day. They go before their family wakes up, before they start work, and that keeps them at the top of their game. That keeps them better as practitioners, right? No matter what they're doing, whether they're a CEO or a doctor or whatever. It of course keeps them healthier for longer. It gives them a more work-life balance, and that gives you energy. Workouts don't actually drain you when you get maybe like day 1, day 2, because your body's like, whoa, what's going on? Like what is all like muscle movements and tearing and growth and whatnot. But as an overall, exercise gives you a ton of energy. It makes you feel like a rocket. It makes you feel like, oh, I can go do this. I can handle my day. And I think that's what he feels. And he wants somebody who feels that too, because everybody knows what happens when you don't exercise in the long run. You will start to atrophy. You will start to slow down. Your brain starts to slow down faster. So it is an entire lifestyle. I agree with you. And it was a really big ask, but I go back to, if she was that in love and this was the end all be all for her, I think she could have just said like, okay, then let's go work out together. Or like, where do you go? Like, I'll come with you. Not get emotionally so disturbed, right? Once people get emotionally that disturbed, all conversations out the window.
Well, I think for me, and like I'm not her, but if somebody said that to me right now, I'm not that fit anyway. So I feel like I can relate to her more than say a year ago. I would feel attacked. I think it's more about a identity attack. I
Uh-huh.
think she did talk about how like she feels she's not good enough. I think this triggered something way deeper. And once again, I stand my ground. I think that yes, working out's great. I still work out, but then I also feel there's just like a whole 9 yards of like emotional things people are not addressing. She is as triggered as she is right now because she feel like if this is like a small thing that you don't accept, I'm sure she does work out, maybe just not to the degree that he wanted. And I think for him to bring up like, I don't know if I should choose my number two because you don't work out as much, I would have felt so hurt. I would just ended the conversation too. I would have walked away. I think there's something about this relationship is not worth fighting for. It's not even she like cheated on him. She just didn't work out. And then he's like, maybe I should have chosen somebody else. That's talking
But
about.
he's right. He should have chosen somebody else. He should, if that is that important, you should go choose somebody else. If you get too emotionally involved in
Mhm.
any romantic or otherwise relationship, you're not gonna be thinking clearly. You're just gonna be like, "Oh my god, what happened?" Then you are in the moment of, "Oh my gosh, what will happen if I get abandoned? I'm gonna be alone again. Oh, we're gonna break up." And breakups are as bad as people make them. Yeah, it probably was really triggering for her. Maybe she did feel attacked. But, like, once you get more relationally mature, you won't feel attacked. You'll be like, "This person is separate than me. They have these needs and wants. They want this from their life. That is okay. I don't fit that life. It's better I know now than later on." And I think another thing he probably went and thought about was her age. I don't think they talked about it on the show that much, but at some point somebody mentioned that, like, "Oh, Chris usually dates, like, 21 to 25-year-olds." Okay, that's she's not 21 to 22. He should go, if because if there is any thought in his mind, most people when they first start out and they're dating, most people are not like that. Emma's sister, she's like, I always wanted to have children. I think it was Emma's sister. She's like, I always wanted to be a mom, and then I became a mom. Then I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? This is so hard. If I had the chance, I wouldn't do it again. I love my kids, but I wouldn't do it again. And a lot of people feel like that. But if there's any part of him that's like, oh, maybe I do want to have children one day, that's not the right candidate for your life. He should marry somebody a few years younger. That's for any guy who wants to marry a woman who wants maybe have children. They should marry somebody a few years younger because men do mature not at a slower pace, but at a later time. So women are generally, even as little kids, like girls are just always just a little bit more mature than men. So then when you flip it, your window becomes like so broad. Instead of being as a guy a little bit more mature than the girl, now she's this much more. So now you're working with this like massive window of maturity that they just it will over time it will just keep causing these indirect problems, which they saw because maybe an older man, maybe somebody, she's in her late 30s, maybe a guy in his early 40s would have had so much more experience and then gone to her and been like, hey, you know what? I love you. I love our vibe. Like what you would hope for, right? The more like PC, softer, gentler, more considerate way. You know, like I love you. Like you're amazing. Like we have so much fun together. Like I love this dynamic. Like I'm attracted to you, but like something stops when I get to like the sex part. That's okay. That's totally okay. And then she could be like, oh, what can we do? Okay, well, let's talk about it. Come work out with me, he's gonna say. Great. Okay. Yeah. Maybe let's like start small and like work our way up. Like this is really important. Like I want you to come with me. But at the end of the day, I'll tell you, when you're married to someone, and if you are one of those people that works out, it's like people who wake up early. If you are up at 5, don't marry somebody who wakes up at 9. It will for the rest of your I had a couple in my office the other day. They were in their early 70s. She woke up late. She wakes up at 10, 11, 12 o'clock. She sleeps at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. He's in bed by 9. He's up at like 4:30. You will always, for decades and decades and decades, unless that person is really willing to change, which is not that common. But if you really want somebody that works out, or there is some part of you that you're like, this is what makes me me. This is so important to me, right? Find somebody who has that same value system. That should be an absolute non-negotiable. And then go break down all the other pieces of like, oh, is the age right? And is the culture right? Is the this right? Is the that right? It's never just one thing. It has to be the whole thing. And if people, like I always say, no paid promotions, but get on Hinge, get on these apps where you have access to so many people, be really picky, narrow it down and find that person who has all of these like 10 or 15-ish things that like people need to have a successful, happy life.
Well, we'll see, because at this reunion, the one that they went to the bar, we haven't seen Jessica and Chris having a conversation. Do you think Jessica will be open to talk to Chris about, what happened? Or do you think this is it? Like there's no more contact. They're just going to move on.
So usually people, when they're breaking up, there's a lot of back and forth. That's very normal because it's almost like an uncontrollable like draw to like, I need closure. I want to find out, or they need to hear me. They need to understand where I'm coming from. it's not, you're not working on logic, which is this part of your brain behind your forehead. You're not working on logic when you have all these emotions swirling around. That's why it's so important to not live in that space where you have all these emotions swirling around. To have more control over yourself, to be so grounded. Like Emma was saying that the guy, she was telling her family, like, I was in all kinds of, distress, and he really grounded me. Great parents, by the way. And it also turned out, just side note, that I don't think she was that messy. I don't think that there was anything really like wrong with she was like pointing out things to him. She's like, you don't really close the doors that much. So I think she's probably like fine. She's probably like normal level of like neatness.
First of all, Mike grounds me, and I'm not even in the relationship with them. I think whenever I see Mike's face, sometimes the lack of his reaction, almost like if something happened, he just like look at it and just be like, okay. Like that makes me feel very calm as a viewer. So I think that's why like from day one, I was such a big fan of him because I had some chaotic childhood things happen too. And I think that people who went through that level of trauma need somebody who is less reactive because sometimes when something happened, it's 0 to 100 real quick for us, right? Like there is like a survival thing kicks in where nothing happened and something happened. We're like, oh, this is bad. Like this is not good. Am I gonna be able to live? Like subconsciously. So I do appreciate Mike's presence. Now, I felt like if I were to be sitting there at a table with Mike's parents and the mom, I initially was like, can you calm down? Like you're so strong right now. Now, I think she's fair. I think she said something and she was like, hey, no offense, honey. Like, this is not me targeting you. And I would say when they were doing their separate interview about how they feel about Emma, their response were better than I thought they were going to be. They really liked Emma. And I initially was like, oh, this is not going to be well for this couple.
I wonder how honest all the parents were because they all were okay with the partners, essentially. They were all kind of like, well, if my kid loves them, I'm
Right.
okay with it.
Okay, so I know there is one parent who is very honest. That is Ashley's dad. He said Alex is not a bad person, but honesty might not be his strongest suit. I wonder how did Alex not gain his trust?
It might just be a vibe that the dad got.
Mm-hmm.
It's imagine if we were in our 60s or 70s. Like how much more are we going to know about people than being in our 30s and 40s? We're going to know exponentially more. So he probably caught the vibe. And if I understood correctly, Alex's mom told Ashley that he had cheated somehow and that he wasn't super honest and he's kind of hard to keep track of, but he wants to settle down.
The part that I did like understood from the dynamic between Alex's mom and him is that like I mean, obviously they're parent child, but so their lifestyle is very similar. So I can see
Yeah.
how Alex is very like drawn to that lifestyle until maybe now that he's trying to settle down. Like traveling and being a nomad is part of the identity.
And I
So
think it's interesting to call it a nomad when you don't have tons and tons of money, but like very wealthy people move around and travel a lot, or they have like multiple homes and like they're not in a trailer or like a, just driving around and just picking up, but they move around. And like to us, that's like, to other people, that's like, oh wow, like those people have so much money. They have like 10 homes around the world, or they have a yacht and they are always on their boat and going places. But I think nomadic life is a very intrinsic primal experience for human beings. To be actually super stationary is very recent in the evolution of mankind. So I don't know that I would hold that against him. And he was saying that like, oh, this is like a new way of living and like that van life that was popular during COVID and all that. But like that's actually very innate in all humans, is to want to like be curious and to move around. But I don't think I think the dad didn't even point out, but yes, he probably picked up on his vibe as far as the honesty of just like, this guy's kind of like just keeping it very surface level, like not really going super deep. But I think also what for her, they should promote and encourage somebody who's in her lifestyle. Like she almost looks like somebody who like needs a guy who's like part of a country club who like already kind of lives in the same city she's in and like goes to parties and like they dress up. And Alex is not that guy. He's like so different than that. And I think maybe for her it's fun, and or she said, "Oh, nobody's ever treated me this well." Just because you get treated well, especially right at the beginning, doesn't mean like this is the person for the rest of your life. You still need to find somebody who has that list of like 10 or 15 things that you're like, these are non-negotiables. Because she's pretty set in her career and her life, and she probably has a lot of friends and family, like we talked about before. Like people take it so lightly, like, oh, I'm just going to get up and move to this totally different city and state. It's very hard. It's very, very hard. It's very isolating. So I think they're doomed to fail, but
You think so? I mean, they got into a fight about, the job, the relocation. I think this kind of go back to the lifestyle fit, I know people who have different lifestyles, but then they're happy because they feel like they complete one another. And I would go so far to even argue Mike and Emma are maybe not fundamentally different, but they're different enough in terms of upbringing, the lessons they each have to go through. What are some of the like non-negotiables in lifestyle? Like, for example, Alex is like, okay, I'm willing to travel for the next job. So I got an offer from Florida. And Ashley's like, I'm down for that. I just need to talk to my boss about what's going to happen with my job. It seems that like Ashley's down, but there's still some friction to it in terms of the level of planning and the free spirit. So what are some of the non-negotiables and how much leeway can we give to some of them to make sure that we're compromising but not losing our identity?
people tell me this all the time, and I want to tell you, just make a note here. Your questions are so good. You are such a good question asker. Just wanted to note that because people tell me that, and I was like, oh, this is what people have probably experienced. So the non-negotiables in lifestyle and the amount of leeway that you can give, list of non-negotiables, I would say probably realistically it's somewhere in that like 10 to 15 items. What are they as far as lifestyle? Sleep wake schedule, healthy eating or not, cleanliness of your home, level of socializing, levels of affection that you want and you want to give to the other person. There are some people who are like so touchy-feely and they're like always want to hug and kiss and this, that. And like some people are just like, no, I'm good. I don't need any of that. I could never hug for the rest of my life and I'm fine. That like don't marry each other because you will feel so bad about it, right? Like Brittany and Devonte. Devonta? So those are a few of the big ones. And then we go into city. Where do you want to live? Some people like Four Seasons. I personally don't like Four Seasons. I'm good with Phoenix. It's sunny 364 days a year. But like, if I met somebody who was perfect and they're like, I live in New York and I have a finance job and this is my thing, that's not a good match. You start with these basic things and the sooner you filter through, the sooner on date 1, date 2, date 3, you start to just ask these questions and like, hey, where are you at? That will give you so much more information than like, oh, when it's fun, it's fun. We have such a good time together. Yes, when it's fun, everybody's having a good time. When people are out drinking or they're going to dates and they've worked and they had their time to rest and shower and like hang out with their friends and do all this stuff. And then they had this like few hours of date. Yeah, of course it's fun for everybody because you're on your best behavior, all of that. But then when you imagine marriage is like you take away all the fun and then what are you left with? What is your life going to look like? Do they like grocery shopping? Do they like cooking? Do they want to manage a household? Do they have any skills and abilities around taking care of children or elderly, right? Anything, pets, something, right? Like some of these guys, the women walked into their homes and the women were just like, there is a keg house, there's a Christmas tree, right? Or that Jordan's apartment, like wow, light years from Amber's house, right? Start with those basic things. And then how much leeway should you give? I don't think you should give any leeway. I think you should be very, very particular and very picky. But okay, in the real world, maybe like 5% off of what you want, 10% off of what you want is like a maximum, because people, if they want to do a lot of work and make those changes and do all of that, they'll change maybe 5 or 10%. They're not going to change 60, 70%. which is what a lot of these relationships need in order for people to meet in the middle. They're too far on some of these things that connection will never happen because you have these built-in ways of being, right? So those are the very basic starting points and the absolute must, right? How often do you want to have sex? Men will always say every day. Like 99.9% of men will say, I am okay with having sex every day. Women, before they have children, it's like somewhere between like very rare. Like Ashley, she sounds like she would want sex every day. That's actually very rare. But somewhere between every day, which is on the bell curve, that very small statistical piece, to once a month. But the average is like once or twice a week, and they can go, every other week sometimes. Like women are much more fluid about it. They get busy, they're doing a lot of things, they're taking care of the house, they're exhausted. But after children, the average for most married couples that I've ever seen, thousands and thousands over the last 15 years, is somewhere around 1 to 2 times a month is the average. Don't bank on that. Like if you're having a lot of sex in the beginning, especially for guys, don't think that's what it's going to be like after you have even your first kid, much less multiple children. It's hardly ever like that. So you better really like the girl, and you better have a lot of other lifestyle pieces that are very much in place.
This is the second time you told me about this, like once, twice a month. And I remember the first time I just got into denial. You said that, and I was like, okay, let's move on and talk about something else. And then, so this is the second. I think it's very sobering. Like, to be honest, I think it's just while you were talking about the non negotiables and like the leeway and like the other pieces in life, I was just thinking, God, there's so much more work that I need to do in order to be marriage ready. Like, I actually live pretty well in terms of my routine, but there's still elements that I have not even started breaking into yet. Like, for example, I don't cook. I ate 15 years of takeouts. But to my counter argument, I know people who, as a couple, order takeouts every day. None of them cook. So there is a hope for me, obviously. But I do think there are certain areas that I personally can start doing more, like learn how to cook. Not the other day, yesterday when I was
Wait,
watching this.
hold on. On that note, before you go on, I want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget your thought. But
Okay.
it's not that you have to learn how to cook. If you don't want to cook, then don't marry somebody who has any kind of expectation that you cook or that they don't want to eat takeout because they're like, oh, and the seed oils and the plastic containers and the food is cold by the time it gets to us. And don't marry somebody who wants that home cooked life. And or if you like it and they're okay with doing all the cooking all the time, great. But learning how to cook it, I mean, it's not terrible, but you don't have to. But just find somebody who's your match in that specific thing because that is like you're on the extreme end of like I never cook, I only do takeout. Some people are like that. I have a lovely neighbor, Janet, at my old house, my old neighbor. She's like 82 or 3 this year. She doesn't cook. She raised a kid. Her husband's okay with it. They still eat out. She's like, I don't even know how to boil an egg. Great. Lucky her. She just never cooks. She doesn't have to clean the dishes. She just gets up, goes down the street. They live in a cute little area. That's fine. That works. As long as it works for both of you. And if it's something that you know that is so important, that's what you need to focus on is find all of those things and then go find a partner who's okay with all of that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's no, I'm very hopeful now. But what almost kind of made me a little stressed this morning after 2 cups of coffee is that there are like 10, 15 non-negotiables, and like every single one of them sounds like so serious. And I was like, this is so hard to find that person. Like, I am like not devastated, but like I just feel like where am I gonna find a person that's gonna fit 10 to 15 things, and I have to be firm about it. And also that makes me more like self-evaluating, like, okay, well, how am I gonna fit other people's 10 to 15? To what level do I have to be ready? I think I'm pretty ready. According to my psychic, I'm 99% ready. But like when it comes down to reality, there's work to be done. Now,
So,
go ahead.
so the the focus, to simplify it, the focus can be on you being your best self be as happy as you can be, create the most amazing life that you can for yourself, and then go out and find somebody who fits that 10 to 15 things, right? That's a lot of the stuff that I talk about in my book is like, what do you even look for? Every single person and or somebody who's in a dysfunctional relationship has the exact same feeling that you're having. Everybody, like almost without any exceptions. Everybody feels like that. Where am I going to find this person? How am I going to find them? I better not be too picky. I better just take somebody and go. This person is good enough, right? My husband and I met before dating apps were a big thing. And that was hard. I will tell you, from our time to before to all the way to the beginning of mankind, that was hard. It is not hard now. I've seen these dating apps. There's millions and millions and millions of people on them. If you live in a remotely big city, and even if you don't, if you're living in a smaller town and you're like, I want to find somebody who lives here, then that is your pool of people, right? But if you live in a big city, there exists. If you exist, your counterpart exists too. I 110 million% guarantee you of it. I have no doubt about it. I have seen it happen so many times. Getting that thought out of your head that it doesn't exist is the first starting point. And then knowing that if you are just happy with yourself and you can be the person who grounds yourself, you don't need an external person. If instead of looking at somebody like Mike and being like, oh, this guy's so soothing, so grounding, I go 0 to 100 so fast. He could go 0 to 100 so fast. Yeah, maybe he has or hasn't had trauma, but that clear, direct indicator of whether or not people are grounded. The people who are more likely to be grounded and can really have that strength and that energy intentionally are people who have had difficult things happen in their life because they know what it feels like to go 0 to 100 and they hate it. But people will change only when they get uncomfortable enough, when they're unhappy enough. Until that point, people usually don't want to change. But if you want to have that grounded feeling, give it to yourself. It is not impossible. I have a great article on my website about like how to bring peace and happiness to your life and how to bridge that gap. So when you're fine and nothing has happened and then you're all the way up here, there's a period of time where there's a ramp up. It may be a short period of time, but it's still a period of time. If you can catch it early and bring it back down, you're golden. But if you let it go up here and then you've got to come back down and then kind of smooth out, look how much time it is versus this. And look how much energy you had to expend versus just this, right? If you think about creating your inner world to match like the Caribbean waters, right? It's like so mellow, not real big waves. It's warm. It's like lukewarm bathtub temperature, super relaxing. If you can consciously create your inner world to do that, right? Our brains are so powerful, even smarter still than all this AI stuff to date, right? Most people don't put their brain to the fullest use, the same way that most people don't put their body to the fullest use and work out every single day and get real strong and fit, right? Most people don't do that with their brain either. They're like, oh, I just live in this world and the nervous system that I was born with, right? And they kind of just attribute it to that. But if you take it upon yourself and you say, you know what? I am going to be my best self no matter what. I live one time. If I'm lucky, I get 100 years. And there's never a moment that it's a good time to not be my best self, whether I'm alone, whether I'm with another person, whether I'm in public. I want to be well composed. I want to be grounded. I want to be a good role model and I want to show the world what's possible. And I want to be in an unpredictable, unexpected, chaotic moment and then be that guy who is so grounded and I don't even bat an eye. That's possible. It's possible for anybody.
Why do we need to be the best version of ourselves all the time? I understand it's something that we should all strive for, but what's the goal? Like what's the end goal here? Sometimes when I think about life, we go through a lot of learnings, we go through a lot of trauma, and we're always like trying to be better. Is it for a person? Is it for an event? I know that the right answer is for ourselves, but why are we trying so hard to always be the best version of ourselves? What's the point here?
Okay, let me ask you a question. Why not be the best version of yourself?
I guess, I think there's beauty in everything. And I definitely feel I am more down to be the best version of myself at this moment than, like, say, 5 years ago. But it's almost like earlier you said people don't change until they have essentially suffered enough. Sometimes I feel like maybe certain people, and I'm not speaking for myself right now, just in general, my observation, also life experiences, there are just enough lessons still in the same pattern or the same environment that we're just not ready to walk away because we haven't got the closure, we haven't learned enough, we haven't suffered enough. So it's very ideal to always be the best version. But there's also, I would also argue, there's beauty in a messy situation because you are still utilizing that as a circumstance, as a tool to get to learn yourself better.
Yes, you can know yourself as well as you allow yourself to know yourself. You can create a state of mind where your strengths are where you get to learn more about yourself. You're kind of asking, like, what's the meaning of life indirectly, but also, I think what is the point of being your best self feeds into not feeling lonely because you are happy with yourself. You don't need anybody else to make you feel a certain way. You are capable of giving to yourself everything that you need and want. And then when somebody else adds to it, great. And if they take away or they're negative or toxic, then you just cut them out or you don't feel their impact so strongly because you are so strong already. You don't need external validation or creation of drama or love or intensity or any of it. But when you get it, you will feel great. You will feel fantastic. You'll feel better than if you were alone. But what is the point of being your best self? You may consider that in chaos and drama, that is your best self. And that's fine too. But always have that perception of when you're hopefully 100 and you're on your deathbed and you look back at your life, do you think, yeah, that was time well spent? That stress was worth it. The 0 to 100 was worth it. The fighting with my partner was worth it. The being distant from my kids was worth it. The anger at work, my internal just frustrations, my disdain for life, my depression, my anxiety, all of these things we have control over. You can snap your fingers and say, you know what? From now on, that's it. I'm going to be amazing. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be loving. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to keep difficult, negative people away from me. I'm going to clean my house. I'm going to eat well. I'm going to get sunshine and go walk and go to the gym. And I'm going to have peace of mind. And I'm going to read. I'm going to do stretch. I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to do Pilates, whatever. Whatever like you think of as like optimal person that is really healthy, that will live a long enough life that you can make all of your dreams come true. In this civilized world that we live in today, it's very easy to just fall in line and be a employee and just go through the motions and just get married and have children and create the new workforce and like push people out the door and just keep fighting and sit down and watch TV all night after work and then just wake up in the morning and repeat and not have any sort of fulfillment. That makes society run. Those types of people make society run. But they're also the types of people who come into my office. I was diagnosed with ADHD. From what? What are you so where is your focus? Usually people who have what we would think of as like mental health symptomology. You open our DSM that has all this like list of mental health stuff. People who have some kind of mental health issue, it's usually because they're not living their best life, because they're living the way that they think they should live, or that they're prescribed to live, or the society thinks is right, or that's what they were raised, and all these barriers were put into their mind and in their body, and they're just holding on really tight. And their default mechanism was depression, addiction, anxiety, whatever else people do, causing physical pain and harm. And if you just let everything and everyone go and you're like, you know what? It's my life. It doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 7, you could be 30, you could be 80, and everybody in between. For as long as you are still alive, you have the opportunity to say, no more. From now on, I'm just going to be happy. I'm going to be peaceful and I'm going to be happy. And anything that gets in the way of that, I'm getting rid of it. I'm getting it out of my life. Right. And even if you're a kid in a household and you can't tolerate somebody or somebody's so difficult, to be able to shut that off and say, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to stand tall. I'm going to look at the beautiful sunshine and nature, and I'm going to go read a book, or I'm going to go play outside. Or if I can't even do that, I'm just going to sit in my room and I'm going to draw, or I'm going to stretch, or I'm going to finish all my homework and get good grades and move on with my life. If you're stuck in a difficult marriage, it's the same thing. Even if your partner is not showing up the way you hope for and they're not doing all of these things, you can still go be great. You can still go be a good role model, whether it's for your kids, for your parents, for the public, for yourself, to remind yourself what's possible. You can go and pursue the licenses and pursue the dreams that you have, and take those moments and go outside and be happy and like socialize and be a good role model even for the people who aren't being great. But why? What is the purpose? Because when you are your best self, and instead of going the like messy route, then when you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself of how I was. Maybe that's you being messy. Maybe that's you being lazy to not be your best self and you like that. Maybe that's you being, all out there for everybody to see, and you want to be seen. But how is it that you want to be seen? And do you want to be the person who creates problems for other people? Do you want to be a person who makes that okay in society? Because no matter what you're doing, people are still seeing you and their mirror neurons are still bouncing off of yours, and you guys are going to catch on and have that experience of, oh, that's like, if you see groups of friends or you see family members, they kind of all walk and talk the same. They kind of dress the same. They kind of act the same, right? Their mannerisms are the same, right? That's why some people say like, oh, you're starting to look even like your dog, right? You move like your dog, because that's how the brain works. It catches on to whatever society you're living in, and it makes you fit in. We're supposed to fit in because we are social creatures. We need each other. But what would happen? Imagine if everybody who's alive today did these things and shed that negativity and let go of those barriers and cracked those walls that they've been carrying around, and they just lived this fulfilling, peaceful, happy life without bothering anybody else, with intention, right? Just by being a good person, you may bother other people. But if you don't intentionally go and knowingly hurt somebody else, you can be whoever you want to be. You can be however you want to be. Imagine if everybody on the planet lived like that. That's what the goal is. It's not an individualistic thing. It's very collective. And then the world becomes this peaceful haven.
Speaking of hurting people, Chris, another problem I had with him was that he's friends with Connor and he's trying to get with Bray.
He's not friends with Connor. I don't think he's friends with Connor.
Well,
That's
they're
not
they're friendly. Well, okay. Well,
They're
Connor was
friendly.
for him. He first broke up with Jessica. I would consider that to be a good friend. I mean, Connor is somebody who I thought were pretty like open, genuine, and try to be there for Chris. What Chris is doing right now is making me very upset. I cannot see how you can do this to a person who never done anything to you. But is he doing the right thing to chase after what he wants and create a fulfilled life? Is this is actually his happy, like, is this the solution? Like, what's your take on Chris and Connor?
I think these people are operating like these are the only single people left on the planet. Like, go out there. There is probably an equivalent of Brie out there. You don't need to go and like mess in their life. If they are supposed to be together and he goes and he tells Brie like, hey, by the way, I think I'm more manly than the man you're with, and I think I'm more ambitious, and I'm going to challenge you, and I'm going to take you to see parts of the world that you haven't seen yet, and it piques her interest, then he can back off. And if they end up together and they're this like happily ever after love story, good for them. That's a really hard decision to make when you find somebody like that. But I hear stories like that all the time. Like the best friends, they end up getting divorced, and then they end up pairing up, and like sleeping with somebody's best friend's wife, and or like it's at work and the other person was just married and this person was single, and they waited like 10-15 years, and then that person finally got divorced, and then they got together. These things happen in reality all the time. It's actually much more common than probably most people hear about. But is he right by doing it? I think there's enough fish in the sea that like he could just go, if he's like, okay, Jess is not the right one, let me go and like I need to find somebody more well suited. Oh, I have this connection with Bree. Obviously it's weird if he goes and he approaches it with Connor. That's very weird. That is not going to happen, especially they're two like territorial men and Connor's already a little bit self-conscious. I think that relationship just needs to take its own course. But for him to implant that seed into Brie of like, hey, have you ever thought of this? I think that I say things that most people don't say out loud, but and I get a lot of grief for it, from people who are not on board with like just living super grounded and in reality. But I think that's actually a very kind thing for him to have done. I wouldn't do it drunk, but does it take the edge off and like lower your inhibitions? Yeah. Like maybe he could have had a call with her, gone for a walk with her, like been like, hey, this is what I have to offer. I know you're with him, but I just want to put this out there and I'm going to disconnect my friendship from him because I don't think it's appropriate for me to continue. And if you want to tell him I said this, or maybe he goes to the guy, but I don't think that would go over very well. Like, what do you do? Do you have a group session, the three of you, and like, hey, by the way, Brie, like I think this and I'm a better man than he. Like, well, how do you do that? It's very difficult. It's a very difficult situation. There is no right answer, I don't think, but I think he's just really ballsy and he just goes out there and he's like, hey, look, this is what's up. I don't agree with his methods in life necessarily of like, oh, like creating this new Instagram account with this like strip club picture and like talking about 21, 25-year-old girls and he's in his early 30s. I don't necessarily agree with all of that, but who am I to say like there is like one right way to do things? Like there's a lot of things you can do right to get the best result, tried and true, right? Research shows, and we've seen happily ever after marriages with what they do. But like he's trying at least. He's not that person who's just like stuck and like, okay, I guess I said yes to Jess, so that's it. We're just going to move on and live together forever. He's still trying, and he's still like that, what you were just saying of maybe it's okay to just be in the mess, and why do we have to be our best self all the time? That's probably what he's thinking too, is like, oh, it's okay to just say whatever I want, and I don't even care. And he was like talking so loud at the bar, and he went up to Brie, and he said this to Jess, and yeah, he's living in the mess. He's not being his best self. He's not grounded all the time. So it's like you see the different sides of it. It's like if you want to be Mike, then you go be Mike. If you want to be Chris, then you go be Chris. Then people are going to have all kinds of opinions about you. Either way, people have all kinds of opinions about both of them, about everybody, because we are automatically like, there was this whole trend during COVID of like, don't stereotype and don't put people into categories and like, we are all one. And no, we're not. We're supposed to stereotype because it's not even supposed to. It's the way the brain automatically works. We put people into categories and we say, okay, if that person is showing these behaviors, then if A equals B every time and he's showing A, then B must be true too. So if he's super outspoken like this and messy, he must be a narcissist. And every time you see that, you're going to think this. It's like an automatic pathway. To break that and to not stereotype other people and to not feel bad about yourself and to say, okay, I'm still working on it and I'm trying to figure all these things out. It's a matter of breaking that thought pattern. It's a matter of saying, I want to be like this. And it's so helpful to have a good role model, even if it's somebody on TV, even if it's your therapist, even if it's a friend of a friend that you met one time and you can just imagine what they're like, to think, what would they do in this moment? How would they operate in this moment? And to channel that in and to manually make your mind work that way and to have control over your body and your words, that is real strength. That is real focus. And that's where you start saying, I choose who I am. I'm not going to be the person that I was just shaped into. I'm not going to just, because A equals B, I'm going to just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Right? Once you can break that and you have control over your mind and body, then you will become the person that you're proud of, that you look back in life and you never have any regrets. Imagine that, right? Some people live like that. And it's an amazing way to live, I think. But did he, we could talk about it all day. Like, did he say it the right way? Should he have done it this way or that way? At least he's saying it. Props to him for saying it. Yes. Can he do it better? If you put Mike in that same situation, if we put him as the example of like said grounded person, and you put him in those situations, I wonder how he would deal with it. That's probably what he would do, is he'd probably, in a sober way, outside of a group setting, contact Bree, cut his friendship off with Connor, and then step way back and then wait for her to go figure her stuff out and then see if that's what she chooses, or maybe not even him. She may break up with Connor and then say, you know what, maybe it's not Chris, but maybe Chris had a point. It's the same thing for Ashley. Maybe Alex is not the right person, but it's not necessarily somebody within that group, but maybe she's going to start thinking, you know what, maybe I need somebody who's already settled, who already has a job, who's already in this situation, who wants to get dressed up and go out and look perfect all the time. So those are all things that need to be considered in the long run so that you can have the best life and so you don't carry that internal friction out into the world.
I definitely, when you were talking, I was thinking yesterday with which I probably shouldn't be thinking, but I should be listening. You did
Oh,
remind.
that's very normal. Everybody does that.
Yeah, had a conversation with my therapist yesterday, and we identified my problem. My problem is that I create a ideal life, and I keep chasing after it, knowing some of it were almost unrealistic, what I'm looking for. And that shielded me from actually experiment relationships in real life because I'm so afraid of letdown. In other words, I'm still working on accepting the fact that I have limitations and whoever I'm going to date or marry will have limitations too. I idealize who I can be or this person can be way too much to create this like a truck, a house, American flag, like 2 kids, 2 dogs, I'm not saying like I'm like in space where like I'm wanting something that's like completely not normal. But I think that like I'm trying to always to be better so that I can have this life. But then I'm not really actually in reality. Meaning like I'm not dating, right? I'm not being on apps. I'm not trying to create scenarios that I can be coupled up with another person. And your comment on messy versus being grounded, Chris versus Mike, kind of made me realize I do have options. I can choose. And it's not always like I just have to like randomly run into somebody eating a croissant like we talked about in another episode. It could be something that I pick a lane and think about what would Mike do. In this case, I would definitely think Mike is someone who is more ideal and closer to my lifestyle than Chris, and just run with it rather than kind of always like choosing between not knowing what I want. Now I feel like, okay, there's a part of owning it, like owning your personality, owning your lifestyle, and owning like who you choose as a partner. And I think at this moment, my question is, do you think Bray is going to break up with Connor and join Chris and become this quote unquote like power couple?
I think she's going to break up with Connor, and I think if she gets together with Chris, she's going to break up with Chris too. Because I don't think they're necessarily well suited either, but better suited. I don't even think better suited because he still has a lot of growing to do, and she's kind of like already there. She needs to find a guy who's already there, like who doesn't still have this like internal back and forth, right? She needs to find like a Mike equivalent. Like, I don't want to keep using him as an example because there's a lot of different versions of that, but like she needs to find, like, imagine like a guy who's like you're saying, like, it's not crazy to want the truck and the kids and the American flag, and like that's not actually that crazy. And I think if she goes, and the most important thing, which I was thinking about what I was going to say about it when I was watching the show, but the most important thing that all single people need to do is to become okay with, proud of, and very knowledgeable about themselves. When you know yourself so well and you take that time to just sit in peace and take some deep breaths and say, who am I? How do I want to be seen by the world? Who do I want as my partner? And to idealize yourself and to idealize that partner. It is okay to be single for long periods of time. It is okay to not go out there and just keep dating and dating and serial dating and over. You don't have to do that. Before I met my husband, I was single-ish, like not getting into a relationship with like, this is my boyfriend and I'm like closing myself off to the world for about 2 years, right? That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Was I still looking? Yeah, that's how I found him. Was my eyes still open? Was I still going out? Was I still talking to guys and thinking about what I wanted and filtering through very, very quickly instead of spending 6 months or 8 months or a year or 2 or 5 with somebody? Yeah, I was still looking, but I didn't tie myself down because I was ready for a serious relationship. And when I met my husband, within that first 2 weeks, poor guy, people always ask him, what is it like being married to a couples counselor? But I asked him all these questions and he stood there and he answered them. And he's like, yes, no, this, yeah, that way. I want to do this, blah, blah, blah. And we did like those pods, right? We talked about everything. And then I was like, okay, I will continue with you. You can be my boyfriend. Let's see where this goes, right? And I knew from that beginning stage that this would work out. And it's totally okay. So, I'm trained and educated as a traditional therapist, right? Degree up here, right? So I have my master's degree. I did thousands and thousands of never ending hours, supervised practice. When I came out and I finished, my first thought was, this is not helpful to people. If you just go by the way traditional therapy is, everybody's going to get stuck in this muck forever. That's why the format that I do, and I sit with people for hours and hours and hours in that first session, I'm like, who are you? Tell me more. Let's figure out, what does the map of your brain look like? And what does your counterpart look like? I cannot tell you how, I can think of them in my mind. How many people have successfully sat and talked and figured that out and then gone out and become their best self starting that day, and then went out into the world, and within a few months, sometimes a couple of years, few years, they went and they found that ideal person. They went and they found that right person. That makes a happy marriage. Don't rush. Marriage is so long. It is so long. This few years of like, oh my goodness, I have to go and to the restaurants and date and look good and be young and have all this energy and sleep in and have so much sex. Don't rush. Just enjoy that period of your life because it will be over. And once it's over, it's permanently over unless some tragic thing happens, right? It is okay to be your ideal self. It is okay to look for your ideal self. And from every practitioner, there is something to learn. I may say this and people may think, or you may think, oh, that's terrible. Like it's better for me to settle. It's better for me to not focus on being my ideal self and better for me to just settle with somebody just because that is the thing to do. And I should just go out there and just pick somebody and move on with my life. Good luck. You're going to end up in that 95% of marriages that are unhappy. 100% that's how you will end up. We know what works. If you just do what works, then you will be successful. And then we can turn that statistic on its head. I will keep saying it until it happens. I'm going to be old and gray when it does. But we're going to turn that statistic on its head where 95% of couples are happy because they're trying something different. They're doing a novel way that we know and we're learning from the people who made it work of what that looks like. You see, most people are not like Mike. Most people are not super grounded. And I think in the end, either Emma's going to say, yes, Mike, you know what? I love you. I want to have children with you. Adopted, my own, whatever that looks like. But Mike comes from a family where those people want grandkids. They want cousins. They want the kids to grow up together, go camping, right? That mom was intense. Maybe some people would feel like that's attacking. I wouldn't. If I was in that situation and a mom didn't like me, I would think, she knows her kid better than I do. She knows what she wants in the long run. This woman is much older than me. She is wiser than me. I'm going to be very difficult with my kids' future spouses, potential spouses. I'm going to be very difficult. I always tell people, like, when you have children, people are involved in every little detail of their kids' lives. And then when it comes to this most important decision ever, they're like, as long as you're happy, honey, we're happy too. No, I don't know if it's the Middle Eastern in me. I don't know if it's like, but
Your facial expression was so good.
You should be very picky. You should be guiding your kid all the way through the end. Help them to choose the right person. They don't know what 20-something-year-old or early 30-something-year-old knows everything about life. There's never going to be a day in my kid's life that they're going to know more than me. I am always going to be older than them. I'm always going to be wiser than them. Nobody has a more vested interest in the child's good outcome than a good parent. Nobody, not even the kid. Even the kid will be like, oh, it's okay, but I'm not going to be my best self all the time, and I'm going to be lazy, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go drink, and I'm going to have fun, and I'm going to, oh, I don't want to go to college, or I don't want to do this. Go ask a good parent. Go get them in a room and say, what should your kid do? It may be different than what the kid wants, but if the parent doesn't have authority, and if the parent doesn't realize, and they've been listening to too much pop psychology of, oh, just let your kid be happy and everything will be fine. Yeah, everybody's happy right before they get married. Why do you think they're getting married? But if you know that that's not going to be good in the long run, you should put your foot down and say, no, this is not a good idea. I'm not accepting this person in my family. You should break up and go keep dating and find somebody better. That's what Ashley's dad should have done.
Mm.
He's giving his daughter to this person who's like, his lifestyle's fine. But that's not going to work in the long run. That girl wants to be seen by society, and she's so prim and proper, and she's so this and that, and she's got this job that's so stable, and she wants to just work her way up in the company, right? That's not Alex's lifestyle. The dad knows it. He has kind of a feeling, but nobody wants to be the bad guy. Nobody wants to look like Chris and stand up for themselves because, oh, in society, that's not a good thing to do. That's frowned upon. Okay, let's all live like that. If people don't speak their mind, if people don't step up and say, no, I'm being protective, you don't have to do it in a rude way. You absolutely don't have to do it in a rude way. But yeah, things need to be said. We don't have to worry about hurting everybody's feelings all the time and tiptoeing around all the time. If you are polite and kind and just relatively considerate, yeah, people are going to have differing views. Get used to it. If you can't get used to it, you're not going to get anywhere in your life. You're going to live in your own little bubble and echo chamber, which you're probably not happy in anyway, because you're probably going to feel alone. And the only people who you're going to surround yourself with are everybody who's reinforcing what you think. But at some point, you're going to hear them gossiping about, oh, they don't actually agree with you. Because nobody agrees with everybody all the time. You put two people in a room together long enough, there's always going to be conflict. At least if you help your kid choose the right person, that's, my God, you've given them the greatest gift of life.
Right. So as we're closing, let's do a little prediction on the couples we haven't talked about. The first is Vic and Christine. Do you think? Yes or no? Do you think they could make it to the altar and say yes to each other?
I love them. They're so on the same wavelength. I loved when she took him out to the farm land area, to rural, whatever. I'm such a city girl. I don't even know what they call that. But I love that they are bringing both their cultures together. My parents are two different cultures, same region of the world, but two totally different cultures. There's so much to learn for the kids. There's so much they can learn from each other. They have enough overlap, definitely, to make things work. They're both so polite. They're both so loving. They have that big value of like religion that's important for them. It's not important for everybody, but for them, that's really important. And they have that, which is huge. I think physically they kind of match. She's pretty tall and, she's big, like girl. And he's like also very tall and big. And like that totally matches. I think they're just, you can see it in their like vibe and their wavelength. And he was so welcomed by her mom. Yeah, we definitely saw the Christine's mom part. But like, unless his parents have some kind of say or they feel strongly about it, but I think they're going to be great. As long as they can keep working at it and know that there's always something new to learn and there's a lot of things in marriage that are going to be different and unexpected, I think they will be just fine.
And then what about Amber and Jordan?
You're picking my two favorite ones right off the bat. So Amber and Jordan, I think same thing. I think they can make it if they keep working. I think they have a little more work to do because Jordan has a little more work to do. But I think he has a lot of potential. And I think she's in that position where she's got a lot more moving parts than the regular person because she has a kid and an ex and this kind of stuff is very complicated. But I think they will be fine because they're both, again, same wavelength, and they have a lot of that 10 to 15. Almost all of them are pretty much checked off. And he's flexible enough and he's growth oriented enough that I think they can just step by step by step. She kind of has to be a little bit patient at first, and then they can launch and like build this great, beautiful life.
I do think Amber is patient. She just seemed like a patient person
She's a
in general.
mom. Yeah. Yeah. She's a good mom. So yeah.
And the last one is Brittany and Devontae. When the seventh episode first aired, I thought they almost broke up. And then things kind of like hit the rock bottom and start rising up. And they seem pretty good at this moment. But Brittany still has a little reservation because she felt like she likes Devontae a little bit more than he likes her. And also, they talked about how Devontae does not comment on Brittany's beauty. We'll end with your thought on this couple.
I think that the fact that she's asking for it is great because she's speaking up for herself. Some people need that. They love compliments. And the fact that he was like, well, I don't know. I feel like now if I do it, now I'm being fake. I'm just doing it because you said. I don't want you to think I'm not being genuine. I think that is a immature way to think about it, but has the room for growth because there's enough insight there. So that is a couple that we almost have to wait and see. And I almost wish they had more time. I almost wish they had like 6 more months to make that correct decision so that they don't get into something and be like, oh, should we get divorced? But they can make it because they are on the same wavelength. But I think that same with her, she needs to just be a little bit more patient and she can transform him into what he knows to be his best self. If he stays, he knows now what he's signing up for. It was kind of like if Kevin had stayed with Kia. You know what you're signing up for when somebody's like grabbing your hand and like, hey, we're going to stand tall. We're going to do this together. We're going to be power couple. We're going to be so happy with each other. And this is what it looks like. And I'm going to guide you step by step. Same thing Bree's having to do with Connor. So all relationships have a possibility as long as, and even if, as long as there's not cheating, severe abuse, physical, emotional, sexual, as long as there's not these like crazy outliers, all relationships have the possibility. The ideal version of yourself is different with each passing day. There are some core things that are true to people, but even that can adjust and morph to whatever you choose it to be. And what you choose is based on everything you know so far. All of these relationships this next few weeks, it's going to be down to the wire. I'm so curious. I hope they release a bunch more at once. I hope next week it's not only 1 episode.
I think the next one is maybe 2. And then 1 more week is the altar. And then they get to say yes or no.
They've mastered the suspense element for sure.
For sure. And they also will do a reunion where like almost a year later they come back together and people have thoughts about how everything went down. So it'll be really interesting. And thank you, Michelle. This is incredible. I learned so much about marriage, almost like about myself. I mean, like, just putting myself in their shoes. And I always say those kind of shows provide a mirror to how I see life and like, who I identify with certain people in the show. So this is very, very educational, very helpful. Thank you so much. And I will see you next week.
My pleasure. Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Zen Podcast. If this conversation spoke to you, the best way to support the show is to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening right now. You can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. It also means a lot if you take a moment to leave a rating or review that help more people to discover the podcast. And please do make sure to leave your comments and your thoughts. And if you know somebody who would benefit from what you heard today, please share the episode with them. This is your host, Zhen, and I will see you next time.